Hi, this is Melissa Jacobs for DeBarra Spoken Word. In anticipation of a workshop at DeBarra's Folk Club on the 12th of June 2024, next Wednesday. It starts at the unusual time of, well, sort of unusual time of 7 o'clock with a workshop, an IFS-informed creative writing workshop. And then the normal session starts at 8:30. And we'll have a bit of a conversation interview, if you like, with someone who is sitting right next to me on the screen, not in reality. Hello, Mary Rose McCarthy.
Hi, Musa.
Hi.
How are you?
Well, I'm fine so far. I mean, that depends on what happens next. But I've invited Mary Rose because we've known each other for a long time, and she's a razor sharp, award-winning short story writer and journalist, and she always asks questions that you cannot really wriggle out of. So I've asked her to do a little interview here and then also on the night in person with the audience so that we can sort of discuss the subject matter with me being in the guest chair, so to speak. And then afterwards, we'll have an open mic, and hopefully that will be a large open mic with anyone who wants to come and do something is very welcome. But of course, the people who've done the workshop might end up with some material they want to read out as well. So over to you, Mary Rose. Would you like to ask me some questions? Because IFS is internal family systems, and that's something I've been doing for quite a while. And I think it matches really well with creative writing. So if you
okay, so let's start from the point of I know very little about internal family systems, and I notice you've titled the workshop and this recording Matters of Perspective.
Yes.
So first of all, I suppose tell me a little bit about internal family systems, and then why you titled the workshop Matters of Perspective.
Okay. Alternative family systems is something I discovered in 2020, and it was like a penny drop moment because I'd long been sort of convinced also by other people around me that we're not one monolithic block, and that there are more parts inside ourselves that come to the fore at different moments in our time. I mean, we're very different if we're cooking a meal and then, you know, happily chatting with our guests, and then suddenly we drop a hot pot on our toes, and then the person that comes out screaming and cursing. It's just a different sub-personality of ourselves. Everyone knows that effect, but it goes much further than that, because if you encounter difficult things during childhood, and who doesn't, things that are sort of threatening to your life or survival, or even remotely, then you can feel a lot of fear and a lot of apprehension, but you can't deal with it when you're 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, or when you're an adult experiencing trauma. So you hide that away, and it sort of stays on inside you, frozen in time, and it's protected by different parts of yourself. It's like a mental immune system in a way, and that can have a huge effect on our lives without us even realizing it. And IFS is when people sort of, you know, people go to therapy. It's a therapy modality. I'm not a therapist, but I'm practicing it and studying it and using it in combination with the ideas, in combination with the ideas of creative writing. But when people do go to a therapist and they do IFS, it is obviously because there are things in their lives that are not going completely right, or anxiety, or all sorts of fears, or blockages that you feel that you have much more potential and you can't reach that. And then there is a method of accessing those parts that are sort of hidden. And that is a long and slow process. But I do not want to do this as therapy. I've discovered that, you know, when you're writing, the perspective is hugely important. And you're a writer, so you know that. So, I mean, even to decide whether you're writing in first person or in third person, from what part of yourself are you writing? Are you writing from the child? Are you writing as an adult, as a all-knowing narrator. And when you do this kind of practice, you discover parts in yourself that might lead you to hidden treasures in a way.
That sounds absolutely wonderful.
It is it's wonderful. It's also a bit, it can also, it's not without its risks, but you find parts of yourself that you didn't know existed. And the idea is often to sort of, get closer to something inside yourself that you hadn't known before. And that's a very, for writers, I think that's interesting because it's new. I don't know if this answers your question.
Yes, it does. I suppose one of the things I say, when you have to do this 50-word biography if you're submitting to journals and things, and one of the key phrases I repeat is that I write to make sense of the world.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what you might be saying is that this internal family systems is writing to make sense of yourself.
Yeah.
Would that be accurate?
That is accurate, but it also does very much inform how you see the world and what you could see in the world. And like, yeah, I was doing an application a while ago, or trying to do an application, and then the first it's like, tell us about yourselves was the first question. And then I just sort of freaked out because I didn't know who I was as a writing person. So I couldn't really answer that question. And
explain that a little bit more to me, like who you are as a writing person is who you are as...
I have certain blockages I have a writer's block since the age of 12, for example. And so certain parts of me that are connected to writing I sort of blocked because they became a threat at a young age. So I can't really access some parts of myself that are really vital to writing, for example. I don't know if I can understand.
And is this why you do this work then? It's to try and unblock the writer in you?
That's part of my endeavors, and to deal with certain anxieties that come up in certain situations.
So is there a process for this that you will be doing in the workshop? There
is a kind of protocol, and I'll be doing
protocol. That's a good word, yeah.
And yeah, it's quite there's certain questions connected to it, and I'm only scratching the surface, because anything else would be wrong. And I'm just inviting people to sort of take a look at what they have inside themselves and use that as material for poems or for a little piece of writing or whatever. And we've done it before. I think you've been to one of the workshops.
Yes, but I didn't. I had to go and collect somebody, so I didn't get the full benefit of it, let's say. But I'm also interested in how this differs, if it does differ, from therapy, from writing as therapy. Is this therapeutic writing you're offering next Wednesday?
I don't know. I'm just offering a way of accessing certain material inside yourself, and whether that, I think, to me, writing and therapy are very much connected.
Mm-hmm.
These days, especially because when I struggle with something and then I start journaling and I start describing it, I think therapy is maybe the wrong word. It's maybe almost like a philosophy. Like I'm not affiliated with any religion, but in Buddhism, there is the idea of the observer. Of looking at, for example, if you have fear and you start observing your own fear, there's a whole method of inquiry about. You start observing it, the fear disappears, because there is a sort of distance between yourself and the fear, and describing it helps it. So if you discover fear in yourself and you use writing to create a certain distance to it, you're already doing creative writing, or I find that creativity is a form of therapy in a way.
Yes,
not just that. It's not always that, but there is that element of getting more agency about what's inside yourself, basically.
And this could sound intimidating if I don't want to know what's inside myself.
Then
be it positive or negative. Maybe I'm scared to turn up on Wednesday in case I uncover the monster.
Well, the good thing is you don't have to turn up on Wednesday. One of the things that one of the healthy feelings that IFS uses is one of the questions it asks is, how do you feel towards this, what you've just seen inside yourself? And then one of the answers is like curiosity. If you feel curious about what's inside yourself and want to use that in your writing and feel that your writing is about that. I mean, if you're writing a detective novel, it doesn't necessarily have to be about your own world. Although even then, I think whenever you write, you come across what's inside yourself. You can't help that. So writing is a bit of a process of internal examination in most cases.
Yes, but I suppose in most cases, because one, I'm lazy, and two, I'm afraid of introspection, you know, I would try and avoid it.
Yeah. Is that a genuine statement, or is it?
Oh yes, no, that's what I mean. So yeah. I wonder then if somebody like me who uses avoidance and laziness, how we would benefit from.
Well, what we could do, if I especially is look at the laziness, because the laziness has a purpose, and write a little bit about the laziness, because I mean, you're not going any further than that. You're looking at the first thing that comes up, basically.
Okay, so I'm not trying to cure myself of any.
No, you can't.
Well, if I could cure myself of laziness, I would pay you. Well, the house would be clean.
Well, in a way, I mean, there's lots of things about that, but cure, you know, nobody will get cured completely, I suspect. Yeah. But I mean, just understanding the function of the laziness, because it has a function.
Yeah.
And it might not be laziness at all. You know, and you can work with that and you can write a whole. And then maybe if you want to write a story about somebody who is grappling with their laziness, then that will inform that story, but it doesn't have to be about you. And you don't have to go any further. You don't have to dive deep at all. You can just you know, keep at the surface and look at, okay, I suddenly have new thoughts about laziness.
Okay. So with an open mind and curiosity rather than blockage and fear to approach the whole way of accessing the creative side of me, perhaps.
Yeah, it is about an open mind and curiosity. I mean, maybe I shouldn't even have mentioned fears, but that's also part of our human.
Well, I think creatives are inclined to be fearful anyway, aren't we?
Oh, writers?
Creatives generally, and writers in particular, the fear of the blank page, the fear of putting myself on the page.
Yeah, that in itself is a really interesting topic. But you see, what you do if you use it over time, you discover different parts of yourself. So often young parts, and then at the moment I'm writing about a young part of myself, and I find that really beneficial. And maybe at some stage it will be a story told by her. That's my aim, to have that 6-year-old tell that story as it was. I remember very little of it, but as I engage with her, I remember more and more, and I hope to use her perspective at some stage to tell that story almost from the inside out. Because as I look at it, I discover more things about it.
And would you write that as factual memoir, or would you fictionalize it?
I might fictionalize it. You know, now everybody was, but nobody needs to know that 6-year-old was me.
Okay.
It can be any 6-year-old, and if I put her in a different situation, then nobody will know that was me. But I will use my autobiographical information to make it realistic fiction.
Yeah. So the emotion of it will be true.
Yeah.
But the character may have a totally different name in a totally different setting.
Yeah. And the other possibility is that this story will never be written, but that this part of myself will play a part in another story.
In another story. Okay. So I think am I right in saying that this system of accessing the creative side of yourself, of myself, I should say, I can only speak for myself, might lead to more authentic writing, more honesty in the writing?
I'm not even sure about that. I just know that it engages me more with the subject matter. And I have a real problem sort of starting something and then not finishing it. But I'm now really curious. I have to be really curious about that particular part of myself, and that curiosity and urgency sort of drives me, and hopefully will
Okay.
keep me engaged.
Okay. And as a process or as a protocol, is this something you do every day? Do you try to write every day? Or journal, whatever word you want to use?
Yeah, you need a bit of headspace for journaling. I mean, it depends on how, I mean, I do write every day in different ways, but depending on how much other deadlines I have. But yeah, I try to do it every day. What about you? Do you try to write every day?
Sporadically every day. How does that sound?
Sporadically.
So at the moment I'm doing this thing. It's a 1,000 words of summer, and there's a motivational quote you get by email each morning or afternoon, because it comes from America, and I'm kind of going with that. But it's literally just writing words rather than writing a story, you know.
Okay.
But when the month is finished, then I might take another few months off. You know, it's I'm not consistent.
Yeah.
Which I would like to be, because I find I'm much happier if I do my 1,000 words every day.
So you might continue to do that.
Yeah. Not that I was unhappy, if you know what I mean, but I feel much freer in myself if I engage with writing.
Well,
and I've known this before.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, this sense of an open mind and being curious about what is stopping me, the laziness or the avoidance, I think that might open up new avenues next Wednesday evening.
And I also hope that we can have like what you're now saying, telling me about this method that you're using, and maybe other people have other things.
Yes.
You know, other prompts.
You know, it would be nice. Maybe I think I'm going to interview one-to-one in real life next Wednesday night. But it might be nice to open it out to the floor and ask other people what they find works for them or doesn't.
Yeah.
Or if they have a strict process that they must work every day at 8 o'clock in the morning or the evening. Or I find it fascinating how other people write or how other people access that creative side of themselves.
Absolutely. There was one, and then we have to finish because otherwise Pico comes along. There was one famous and long dead Dutch writer, and he could only write when the Hoover was running, because that would sort of create a kind of, and he wrote a lot of books, create a kind of barrier against, you know, intrusions from the world. I wouldn't recommend it, actually.
I would write to the sound of the Hoover if somebody else was actually hoovering my house. That would be really good.
That would solve all your laziness. Okay, so, thank you very much, Mary Rose. And
you are very welcome. I look forward to next Wednesday night and continuing this conversation.
Okay, me too. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.